everybody. Today we'll be running through the sync manager for WooCommerce and Xero. This is how we tell the system to send the data from WooCommerce into your Xero file, things like invoices and new orders when they are created in WooCommerce. This assumes you've already set up the two connections from WooCommerce into Wbsync and Xero into Wbsync. If you haven't done that already, go back and check out our video about how to do that using the wizard. It's real quick and easy. So if you haven't already, check it out. So for today, we're going to be running through the sync in the sync manager here. So from the main menu, I just go to sync manager. And what I should see here is my two connections in my sync. So I just go to the edit here. What this is going to do is just load up into my sync and sync up my data from Xero. If I click on this, this will open up my Xero connection, and I can see here that it is connected to the demo company. So it's a good start. So the first thing we're going to do here is we can see the first option is when an order is created in WooCommerce, we create an invoice in Xero. So this is the main thing that we really want to do, so we'll tick that on. This means anytime an order is created in WooCommerce, we don't need to rekey. It'll get sent through into Xero automatically according to our settings here. So the first thing we need to do is work out what order status we want WooCommerce in WooCommerce to send through to Xero. So we've got three options here: processing, completed, and on hold. Depending on your business and how you want it to work, you can select whichever one works for you. You can have multiple ones, of course. So for this one, I'm just going to select completed. We can then also choose to send a payment through into Xero. This means that you don't have to manually enter this in, and it just comes in and you can reconcile that nice and easily. If I do tick that on, I do have to have the authorized invoice status. That's a requirement for Xero. So that means the invoice will go through with a payment attached to it, but it will be authorized. If you do want to use draft or submitted, you will have to not send the payments through and do that manually. So the choice is yours on that one. If we are going to send the payments through, we do need to send it to a non-bank account that can take payments. Standard Xero has a clearing account, which we can see here. So if I do go into Xero, we can see in our settings and chart of accounts, we can see this account. I might need to go to advanced here. Chart of accounts. And if I search for clearing, we can see this clearing account. If I click on it, we can see this is enable payments to this account. I will come back to this because we can add accounts in and then sync them in too. So we might want to use a different account for something else. So for now, we'll leave that as clearing account. We can also send the orders with a type of customer. So there's two options here. We can send an existing code or create a customer. So for, perhaps a high turnover website where you get a lot of maybe one-off customers, you don't want those contacts syncing into your Xero file. In that case, you can just select a generic customer. We'll just say Dick Smith for this example, but that may be web sales or online sales or something like that. That just means it keeps your Xero contacts clean, and all those details are still in WooCommerce, of course, so you can access them from there for any sort of marketing or anything like that. Of course, the invoices are still going to come through into Xero, so that's all fine. It just means they'll have a generic customer on them. However, if you do decide you do want all that information in Xero, that's no problem as well. We can just say create customer here. It will ignore this code here, and then it will look to match the customer on a first name and last name. If it doesn't find one, it will create one. If it does find one, then it will just use that. So nice and easy there. So for this one here, I'll just say let's use the existing customer. The next option is about how the invoice appears. So do we want to use the WooCommerce number as invoice, Xero invoice number? If so, just need to tick that on. This is pretty handy for referencing back into from Xero back into WooCommerce to see what order it was. For any, if you ever do need to reference back for whatever reason. You can also use a prefix in front of the invoice number. This is handy again, just in case you do want to differentiate in a list orders that come from Woo. You might have another shop like Shopify or something like that. So you might want to use different prefixes for different online shops. If you do leave that unticked, that's fine. That'll just then use the standard Xero numbering. And then the next one here is pretty important. It's how do you want your lines, invoice lines, to come into Xero? So we've got two options. We can use Xero inventory items or sales account. So for this one here, I'll just touch on the inventory items. So what happens with inventory items, the system will try and match the WooCommerce SKU on an item code that exists in Xero. If it finds it, it will use that, and all good. If it doesn't, however, we do have this option here to have a fallback code. So we'll just use, I don't know, whatever. I mean, this is the demo file, so it doesn't really matter. This just means if it doesn't match for whatever reason, it will still sync through, it won't fail. And then you have the option to go back and have a look where the problem occurred. Is it a problem with maybe the WooCommerce SKUs misspelt or something like that, or it just simply doesn't exist in Xero, or maybe the WooCommerce doesn't have a SKU on it at all, so you can rectify it there and then. Next time it syncs, it'll be no problem. However, if we do want to say we want the sales lines to be a sales account, then this is irrelevant. It'll just go into a sales account. Now, I've only got one sales account in this demo account, so it's just going to go straight to that sales. When it comes to freight, we got the same option here. So you might actually want to say, I want to sync my inventory items through as inventory. However, I want the freight to go through straight into the GL. This is handy for reporting and things like that. So you can keep track of your stock for the lines. However, you don't need to worry about that with a freight code. Again, I've only got the sales account here, so I will show you something there shortly. And then we've got do our line amounts include tax from WooCommerce? And then we've got our no tax code, so that is GST free income, and this one here is GST on income. We also have here mapping the tax rate into WooCommerce, so we can do that as well. So this will just mean that anytime we do see the code in WooCommerce GST, it'll map to whatever code we set. These two here is more of a fallback when there's something that doesn't match for whatever reason, or more the GST free. So what I'm going to do is just quickly save that. What I'm going to do here is actually come into Xero now, and I'm just going to add a code. And I'm going to call this 220. No, sorry, account type is not 220. Account type is sales, and the code is 220. And we're going to call this freight income. That is a GST account. Oh, should spell that correctly. I'm not going to enable payments on this account. I'm going to save that. I'm going to add another account as well, and this is going to be this is going to be a current asset. This is going to be code 900. If that is available, not available, 856 maybe. Okay, and we'll call this WooCommerce clearing. So what I'm going to do is enable payments on this, because then we're going to actually send payments into this account. So if I save that now, so we've got the two new accounts we've created. If I just now refresh my Wbsync page, once this reloads here, and we're nearly done. So now what we'll actually see here is the WooCommerce clearing account in our system. So if we do want to actually send the payments through as authorized, we've got the WooCommerce clearing account. And if I scroll down to my freight code, we'll see the freight income there. So that's all we need to do for the order. Now that will start syncing orders in no problem. It will run every about 20 minutes or so. So any new orders, they'll be in your Xero. The next option here is we got syncing inventory between Xero and WooCommerce. If you do use Xero as your inventory management, well then this is really handy. So we're always going to match on SKU. So there's two options here what we can do. We can sync the pricing and we can sync the quantity. And it's handy because we can choose which direction we sync. So in some scenarios you might want to sync something from WooCommerce into Xero and vice versa. So for this one here, let's say the pricing in WooCommerce is correct and the quantity in Xero is correct. This is pretty unusual, but it could happen. So there, what will happen every time this syncs, it'll send through any new pricing updates. So if you change your price in WooCommerce, it's going to update your price in Xero. And if you are using Xero as the inventory management side of things, then anytime you sell something like on the phone or, maybe an email order or something like that, then Xero is going to deduct some stock from that, and that's going to be the true number. So this will then sync back into WooCommerce. So let's say you've got 10 and you sell 5 over the phone. It will now tell WooCommerce to set its number to 5. Now this really means that you're not going to be overselling. When you oversell, customers get pretty annoyed when you have to cancel their order, and a lot of the time they don't come back. So this is a handy little feature to prevent that. So once again, all we need to do is save that, and once we reload we can see our items are ticked there. That's really all we need to do. Once that's done, all we need to do is turn the connection active, save it again, and the system's going to start syncing orders from our WooCommerce into Xero. Obviously, we've not had any sync through at the moment because this is just a new one, but anytime a sync will happen, what we can do is come into our logs and see what we've got here. It'll be a little bit of information about where it came from, the source reference number, so the WooCommerce number, the destination reference, and if it was any, failed attempts and things like that. Generally it will only be one, and if you do want to see, you can get some more detailed logs about the whole process. Anytime you do have any syncs, they will also show up on your chart here. Obviously I've got none in my company here, and in the logs here you can see everything again if you do have more than one sync. So that's really about it for today. At any point, if you need help, click the little help guy and we'll get back to you. As always, if you've got any questions, let us know, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.